So let's hear from you, Vijay. I think you're kind of right in the middle of this stuff.
Indeed, I am. Thank you, John. Thank you, Toru. Toru has identified, some of the motivations that led to this effort, that led to the book. And John, as always, has wonderfully pointed out the real promise and perhaps the generative potential of the whole open education movement, the fact that it offers the opportunity to continually improve. I would like to just touch upon some of the opportunities and the implications of this work and the action that we hope it will lead to for all of us involved in education as teachers, researchers, practitioners, policymakers. A good place to start, and which is quite relevant given where I am, is actually MIT's bold announcement of OpenCourseWare in 2001. And since then, the course content of over 1,800 courses have been published on the web and made available for free to the world. Alongside, there have been other initiatives. The iLab initiative, for instance, which makes real labs accessible over the internet to enrich science and engineering education by greatly expanding the range of experiments that students can be exposed to in the course of their education. There has been the DSpace initiative, which creates an open source repository for education research materials, an initiative that I'm intimately familiar with, the Open Knowledge Initiative, OKI, which was geared towards developing an open architecture to support the development of portable applications, sustainable applications that worked with campus infrastructures, but which really offered choice when it came to educators to be able to pick up the kinds of applications that they'd like and be able to actually run them. And beyond these initiatives, of course, there's a whole host of other open initiatives, some that John referred to, like the Connections Project, Carnegie Mellon's project, many of the projects that our authors have written from and reflected upon. And all these point to this gathering storm of open education. And when you look at each of these initiatives, they point to a rich palette of transformational possibilities. In fact, through this movement, you see suddenly this abundance of content, of quality content. You also see an abundance of relationships, access to first-hand experiences, design that enables choice, new distributed communities, which are actually self-organizing, self-created and self-organizing. When you look at them in total, you really see, and we begin to see, that it is really possible to radically alter both the economics and the ecology of education. I look at the movement, and we see, some of the sweet spots of opportunity. John referred to this blending, the blending of the physical and the virtual, the blending of situated learning with online experiences, the blending of conventional pedagogy with what networked learners and network communities bring in. We also look at opportunities for boundaryless education. And I'm not talking about traditional geopolitical boundaries, although that's important too, but boundaries that typically exist between disciplines. So suddenly now it's possible to construct thematic educational experiences much more easily, and to bring relevance. You can think about the merging of life science and engineering. You can think about curricula that is actually world problem based. So these are the kinds of promising opportunities. But what all these opportunities also point to is that there's clearly a need for a fresh perspective on how we think about resources and the relationships available to education. So traditional assumptions that we make, for instance, about scarcity with respect to the extent and type of resources available, scarcity of content, of contact, are suddenly challenged by this whole open education movement. Of course, all this raises the issue of our readiness as educational institutions, as educators, to take advantage of this opportunity and the need to be effective in this new ecology which blends technology, open education in very constructive ways. Our authors have surfaced a variety of these considerations related to readiness. They've articulated some of the important issues and suggestions for planners and practitioners. Based on all this, our hope is that the book actually launches a process that it becomes a vehicle for reflection, for discourse, and for some very serious planning for a variety of us, for institutional leaders as they grapple with how to preserve and contextualize the value of residentially based education, something that we at MIT, for instance, worry about a lot. How do you change the production function, the mix of resources, spaces, given the new clientele, given that there is this plethora of quality resources available out there? In cases as nations, as we start thinking about increased access to quality educational opportunity in the new knowledge economy, how do we start thinking as teachers to figure out, how is our role as John pointed out, as coaches, mentors, managers of educational resources, how does it need to change to take advantage, to leverage these new, to leverage this new possibility? How does our role as advisors and mentors change? And then also we hope that this becomes a vehicle for policymakers to think about some of what the new norms for intellectual property needs to be. How do you launch this governance? How do you address governance issues, considering that we're suddenly dealing with the distributed collective of producers and participants in this educational realm? So we hope that this book really starts fueling the discussion so that we can start not just preparing for these unintended consequences, but also start proactively constructing a preferred vision of the future. That is indeed our hope, that with the book, with the recommendations that our authors have made, with the kinds of visions that John has laid out in his foreword to the book, and the specific recommendations that Toru and I have tried to identify.
Thank you very much, Vijay, and thank you, John. So building on all these great ideas, we really hope by reading, reading through all these wonderful, stimulating chapters in this book, we hope you can join this very exciting intellectual journey to find many possibilities and opportunities for open education. Thank you, and thank you for joining us again.
In the spirit of open source, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and the MIT Press have made Opening Up Education available for free download from the MIT Press website, or it can be purchased in hard copy from the press. And we invite you to join Toru, Vijay, and John to continue the conversation on the Carnegie website at www.carnegiefoundation.org.